You think you made the smart move. You bought. You stopped renting. You told yourself you were building something real. You were wrong. While you were feeling like a homeowner, the bank was collecting 74 cents of every dollar, every single month. Your neighbor rents the same unit for $2,400. You pay $4,713. In 20 years, he is $1 million ahead of you. The smart move was not what you thought it was.
The mistake is not buying a condo. The mistake is buying a condo because you were told it was the responsible adult thing to do before you had the family, before you had the stable career, before you even knew what city you wanted to live in 5 years from now. I want to be clear about when buying actually makes sense. Because this video is not anti-ownership. It is anti-buying before the math works. When you have a family, a stable career in a city you have committed to, and a 10-year holding horizon, buying can be the right call. I will give you the exact framework to test that at the end of this video.
But that is not who is being told to buy right now. The people being told to buy right now are 26-year-olds who have been in their job for 18 months, are not sure which city they want to be in at 31, and are buying because the cultural script says they are falling behind if they do not. That is not a financial decision. That is a performance. Because here is what buying a condo at 26 or 27 actually does to your life in Toronto. It ties you to one city at exactly the moment in your career when mobility is worth the most. It chains you to a maintenance schedule. When the dishwasher breaks, that is your problem, your Monday morning, your $200. When you rent and something breaks, you send a text. Someone else handles it.
It takes every dollar of financial flexibility you had and converts it into a down payment, closing costs, land transfer tax, and a mortgage payment that will be larger than your rent was. And it pins you inside four walls at the exact point in life when you should be free to move, to change jobs, to try a different city, to travel for 3 months if you want to. The people who tell you renting is throwing money away have usually forgotten what it felt like to be unattached. Or they bought decades ago when Toronto real estate had a fundamentally different price-to-income ratio. Or they are your parents who bought a detached house in Scarborough in 1987 for $180,000 and watched it become $1.4 million and genuinely cannot understand why their experience does not translate to yours.
Their experience does not translate to yours because the math has changed completely. In 1987, the average Toronto house cost approximately 3 times the average household income. In 2024, it costs 11 times the average household income. The ratio has not shifted modestly, it has broken. We are not going to tell you renting is always the answer. We are going to show you the math, walk you through the decision framework, and let you make the call with real numbers. Instead of inherited assumptions, let us show you exactly how much it has changed.
When you buy a Toronto condo in 2024, what are you actually purchasing? This is not a rhetorical question. I want to walk through the mechanics because most people who buy condos have never actually mapped out what they own at each stage of the loan. The average condo price in Toronto in 2024 is approximately $650,000 for a one-bedroom unit. Let us use that number as our baseline.
To purchase this unit, you need a minimum down payment of 20% to avoid CMHC mortgage insurance. That is $130,000. Most first-time buyers do not have $130,000 in cash, so they put down the minimum insured amount, which is 5% on the first $500,000 and 10% on the remainder. On a $650,000 condo, that means roughly $40,000 down, plus CMHC insurance of approximately $22,000 added to your mortgage. Your actual mortgage balance on day one is not $610,000. It is closer to $632,000. Your monthly mortgage payment on $632,000 at today's rates, let us use 5.5%, over a 25-year amortization is approximately $3,870 per month. That is your mortgage, but that is not what you pay every month to own this condo. Not even close. Now add maintenance fees. In Toronto, condo maintenance fees average 75 cents to 85 cents per square foot per month. A one-bedroom unit is typically 550 to 650 square feet. At 80 cents per square foot on a 600 square foot unit, your maintenance fee is $480 per month. That fee covers building insurance, common area cleaning and repairs, elevator maintenance,
concierge or security where applicable, and contributions to the reserve fund. You pay it every month. It does not disappear when your mortgage is paid off.
Now add property tax. Toronto's residential property tax rate in 2024 is approximately 0.67% of assessed value annually. On a $650,000 condo, that is roughly $4,355 per year, or $363 per month. Your monthly ownership cost is now $4,350 plus $363, $4,713 per month before utilities, before parking, which in a Toronto condo building typically adds another $150 to $250 per month if it is not included. We will leave parking out of this model and stay conservative. And we have not touched your closing costs yet. Land transfer tax in Toronto. You pay both provincial and municipal. On a $650,000 purchase is approximately $20,350 for a non-first-time buyer. A first-time buyer gets a partial rebate and pays roughly $12,950. Legal fees, home inspection, title insurance, add another $3,000 to $5,000.
Before you make your first mortgage payment, you have spent between $75,000 and $80,000 just to get inside the door. Now, compare this to renting the same unit. A one-bedroom condo in Toronto rents for approximately $2,400 per month in 2024. Some neighborhoods are higher. Etobicoke, North York, you can find them for $2,200. Downtown Core, closer to $2,600 or $2,700. Let us use $2,400 as our baseline. Your monthly housing cost as a renter, $2,400. Your monthly housing cost as an owner of the same unit, $4,713. The gap is $2,313 per month, every single month. That is $27,756 per year. If you were in Calgary, the equivalent condo costs closer to $380,000. And the gap between owning and renting narrows to approximately $14,000 per year. In Montreal, even less. In Vancouver, the gap widens beyond Toronto. But in Toronto, $27,756 annually is the number we are working with, and it is the foundation of everything we build from here.
Here is where the rent is throwing money away argument always goes next. Yes, but as an owner, you are building equity. The renter has nothing to show for their $2,400 per month. This is the line that sounds true and is not true, or at least is not nearly as true as people believe. Let us run the actual numbers. On a $632,000 mortgage, at 5.5% over 25 years, your monthly payment is $3,870. In your first year of payments, here is the split. Interest paid, approximately $34,200. Principal paid, approximately $12,200. You made $46,440 in mortgage payments in year one. The bank kept $34,200 of it. You kept $12,240 in equity on a $650,000 asset. That is a return of approximately 1.9% on the asset value in year one, not the equity story you were sold at the pre-construction event. After 5 years of payments, you have paid approximately $232,000 total to the bank. Of that, $163,000 went to interest. $69,000 went to principal reduction. Your mortgage balance after 5 years, approximately $563,000. $163,000 in 5 years to interest alone. To put that in real terms, $163,000 is your kid's entire university education. Tuition, housing, textbooks, 4 years, fully paid, gone. To the bank, in interest, in 5 years, on a condo you do not yet own outright. Now, the ownership advocate will say, but your property value went up. You are building wealth through appreciation. Let us model that honestly. Toronto condo prices from 2019 to 2024, a 5-year window that includes the pandemic surge and the subsequent correction, increased by approximately 18% on average. This is not the dramatic gains of detached houses, which appreciated much more aggressive. Condos specifically lag, and in 2022 to 2024 actually declined in real terms before recovering partially in late 2024. On our $650,000 condo, an 18% gain over 5 years gives you a value of approximately $767,000. Your equity position after 5 years, $767,000 minus your outstanding mortgage of $563,000 equals $204,000 in gross equity. That sounds like a good number until you account for what it actually cost you to generate it. You spent $361,580 over 5 years to generate $174,000 in net accessible equity after transaction costs. That is not a wealth-building machine. That is a wealth transfer mechanism from you to the bank in interest, to the real estate agent in commissions, to the government in land transfer tax, and to the condo corporation in maintenance fees. The $69,000 in principal you paid down is real. It exists as equity. But to access it, you need to sell. And selling costs you 4 to 5% in commissions, plus legal fees, which on a $767,000 sale is $35,000 to $40,000. Every time you buy and sell, you pay that toll. It is the structural cost of housing as an investment vehicle that nobody discusses at the offer table.
The renter paid $2,400 per month. The owner paid $4,713 per month. The gap was $2,313 every single month. What happens if the renter takes that $2,313 gap and invests it every month without exception? The renter also had $79,000 that they did not spend on a down payment, land transfer tax, and closing costs. Let us say they invested $70,000 of it, keeping $9,000 as an emergency fund inside a TFSA at the beginning of year one in a broad Canadian and U.S. equity index ETF portfolio. We will use a 7% average annual return. This is conservative. The MSCI World Index has returned approximately 10% annually over the past 30 years in CAD terms. At 7%, we are building in a meaningful margin of caution. At the end of year one, the $70,000 lump sum has grown to approximately $74,900. The renter has also contributed $2,313 per month for 12 months, approximately $27,756 in new contributions, grown at 7% to approximately $28,700. Total TFSA portfolio at end of year one, approximately $103,600. At the end of year 5, the $70,000 lump sum has compounded to approximately $98,200. The monthly contributions of $2,313 per month invested over 60 months at 7% have accumulated to approximately $162,000. Total portfolio, approximately $260,000. Compare this to the condo owner at year 5, $174,000 in net accessible equity, requiring a transaction to access. The renter is already ahead, $86,000 ahead, in liquid, tax-sheltered, transaction cost-free wealth. Let us run this to year 10. At year 10, the renter's portfolio, $70,000 initial investment plus $2,313 per month for 120 months at 7%, is approximately $590,000. All of it inside a TFSA, all of it growing tax-free, all of it withdrawable at any point without triggering a tax event. At year 10, what does the condo owner have? Their property, assuming continued appreciation at the same 18% per 5-year cycle, so another 18% from year 5 to year 10, is now worth approximately $905,000. Their mortgage balance, after 10 years of payments, is approximately $491,000. Gross equity, $414,000. Subtract selling costs of approximately $40,000. Net equity after transaction, $374,000. They also paid over 10 years, $463,000 in mortgage payments, $57,600 in maintenance fees, escalating at 5% annual from the base $480 per month, $43,560 in property tax. Total spent over 10 years, $564,000. The renter, over 10 years, paid $288,000 in rent and has a $590,000 liquid portfolio. The owner spent $564,000, nearly double, and has $374,000 in equity that requires a sale to access and costs $40,000 in transaction fees every time they access it. The renter is ahead by $216,000 at year 10 in liquid wealth with no transaction cost to access it. Year 20. At year 20, the renter's portfolio has grown to approximately $1.84 million inside a TFSA. The monthly contribution of $2,313 has run for 240 months. The compounding has been running for 2 decades. At this point, The portfolio is generating approximately $128,000 per year in growth at 7% before any new contributions. The renter is earning a full-time salary from a spreadsheet.
At year 20, the condo owner's property, assuming the same 18% appreciation per 5 years continuing, is worth approximately $1.26 million. Their mortgage balance is approximately $380,000. Net equity before selling costs, $880,000. After selling costs of roughly $55,000, approximately $825,000. The renter has $1.84 million in liquid, tax-sheltered wealth. The owner has $825,000 in illiquid equity that requires a transaction and $55,000 in fees to access. The gap? $1,015,000. $1 million. In Calgary, where ownership costs are lower, the gap narrows, but the renter still comes out ahead by approximately $400,000 to $500,000 at year 20, assuming similar investment discipline. In Vancouver, where condos now average above $750,000 for a one-bedroom, the gap widens further. The city changes the number. The math does not change.
We have not talked about the variable that every condo owner fears, and almost no one mentions at the point of purchase: the special assessment. A special assessment is what happens when your condo corporation, the body that manages your building, runs out of reserve fund money and needs to pay for a major repair: new roof, elevator replacement, parking garage waterproofing, balcony repairs, facade restoration. These are not small items, and the cost gets divided among all unit owners, proportional to their unit size. You do not get to vote no. You do not get to negotiate. You get a letter with a number and a due date.
In Toronto, between 2020 and 2024, special assessments of $10,000 to $35,000 per unit have become increasingly common as buildings age and deferred maintenance catches up with them. Buildings constructed in the condo boom of the early 2000s are now 20-plus years old and hitting major capital expenditure cycles simultaneously. I know someone, I will not use names, who bought a condo in a mid-rise building near the DVP in 2018. Good building, well managed on paper, passed the status certificate review at purchase. 4 years later, a special assessment landed for underground parking waterproofing. His share, $18,500, due in 60 days. He did not have $18,500 liquid. He had to put it on a line of credit at 7.2% interest, a surprise expense, legally mandatory, with a deadline, on top of his mortgage, on top of his maintenance fees, on top of his property tax. None of this appeared in any projection his mortgage broker ran. That is a risk that does not appear in any mortgage calculation. It does not appear in your pre-approval. Your bank does not stress test you for it. Your real estate agent does not walk you through it at the offer table. It is a financial surprise with a legal obligation to pay, and it lands on the owners, not the renters. When something breaks in a rental unit, the renter sends a text. The landlord handles it. That sentence sounds simple. Over 20 years, it represents a completely different relationship with financial risk and financial surprise. Your maintenance fee at the time of purchase is not your maintenance fee for life. Toronto condo maintenance fees have increased at an average rate of approximately 4 to 6% per year over the past decade. This increase is driven by rising insurance costs for condo corporations. Insurance premiums for multi-residential buildings have increased dramatically since 2020. Rising wages for building staff, utility cost inflation, and reserve fund contributions that were historically underfunded and are now being corrected by regulators. On our 600 square foot unit, your maintenance fee in 2024 is $480 per month. At 5% annual increases, year 5, $613 per month. Year 10, $782 per month. Year 20, $1,274 per month. Over 20 years, you will pay approximately $183,000 in maintenance fees on a one-bedroom Toronto condo, and that assumes no major special assessments on top of the regular monthly fee. That is $183,000. For the privilege of owning an asset, you are simultaneously paying a $632,000 mortgage on. The renter pays none of this. Zero maintenance fees, zero special assessments, zero property tax. When the elevator needs replacing, or the lobby gets renovated, or the roof leaks, the renter's monthly payment does not change. The owner gets a letter. Before we get to the solution framework, I want to walk you through the 5 mistakes I see most often when Canadians approach the condo purchase decision. Mistake number 2 is the one that costs people the most. I will get there. Mistake number 1, comparing mortgage payment to rent, not total ownership cost to rent.
This is the most common mathematical error in Canadian real estate conversation. People say, my mortgage is $3,870 and my rent was $2,400. They are not that different. They have forgotten to add $480 in maintenance fees, $363 in property tax, and they have not yet counted the special assessment risk. Total ownership cost is $4,713. The comparison is not $3,870 to $2,400. It is $4,713 to $2,400. That is a $2,313 monthly gap, and it completely changes the investment calculation.
Mistake number 2, buying before your life is actually stable enough to make the decision rational. This is the expensive one. Buying a condo at 26 in Toronto when you are not certain you will be in the same city at 31 is not a financial decision. It is a performance. It is buying the feeling of adulthood before the conditions for that decision are actually in place. The math on a condo purchase only works, even in the most optimistic scenario, over a long holding period. Real estate transaction costs are enormous. You lose approximately 7 to 9% of the purchase price every time you buy and sell when you add up land transfer tax, real estate commissions, and legal fees. If you buy at 26 and need to sell at 30, because your partner gets a job offer in Vancouver, or you get a promotion that requires relocation, or the relationship ends, you are looking at a $45,000 to $55,000 loss before you have had time to accumulate meaningful equity. I have seen this happen. It is not a hypothetical. My position is that a condo or home purchase makes sense when you have a family, a stable income in a city you have genuinely committed to, and a holding horizon of at least 10 years. Not before, not because of social pressure, not because your parents are worried you are falling behind. The purchase decision is not about proving something. It is about running the numbers and making them work. Mistake number 3, ignoring the opportunity cost of the down payment. $79,000 in closing costs and down payment is not free money that would otherwise sit in a savings account doing nothing. It is capital. Invested in a diversified index portfolio at 7% annually, $79,000 becomes $155,000 in 10 years and $305,000 in 20 years. Every condo purchase analysis needs to include this calculation, and almost none of them do. The down payment is not the cost of entry. It is the cost of foregoing 2 decades of compounding. Mistake number 4, treating maintenance fees as a fixed cost. As we showed in Section 7, maintenance fees in Toronto have increased at 4 to 6% per year for a decade. When you model your condo ownership costs, you cannot use today's maintenance fee as a constant. You must project it forward at a realistic escalation rate. The difference between using a flat $480 per month versus a 5% escalating maintenance fee is approximately $103,000 over 20 years. That is not a rounding error. That is a car, or 2 years of TFSA contributions. Mistake number 5, conflating emotional security with financial security. Owning a home feels secure. It feels like you have done something real, something permanent, something adult. That feeling is real, and it is not nothing, but it is a feeling, not a financial return. The renter with $590,000 in the TFSA at year 10 has more actual financial security than the condo owner with $374,000 in illiquid equity, because the renter's wealth is liquid, diversified, and accessible without a $40,000 transaction. Security is a net worth number, not a property deed. If you are watching this and you have already made one of these mistakes, you are already ahead because you know it now. So what is the actual framework for making this decision rationally? I am going to give you 3 tests. If a condo purchase passes all 3, the math can work. If it fails any one of them, you need to stop and recalculate before you sign anything. Test 1, the stability test. Do you have a family, or are you actively building one in this city? Do you have a career that is established? Not just a job, but a position with trajectory in a company or field that is geographically anchored to this city for the foreseeable future. Have you lived in this city for at least 3 years and actively chosen to stay, not just stayed because you have not decided to leave yet?
If you answer yes to all three, you pass the stability test. If you answer no to any one of them, the purchase decision is premature. Not forever, but for now. Test 2. The 10-year test. Can you hold this property for a minimum of 10 years? Not ideally, minimum. Because Toronto real estate transaction costs are so high, 7% to 9% of purchase price every time you buy and sell, that you need a full decade of appreciation and mortgage paydown just to overcome the entry and exit costs. If your life circumstances, career trajectory, or relationship situation make a 10-year holding period uncertain, the purchase is not rational at this moment. This is not pessimism, it is mathematics. Test 3. The total cost test. Take your complete monthly ownership cost, mortgage payment, maintenance fees, property tax, building insurance, and compare it to the rent on an equivalent unit in the same neighborhood. Then take the gap between those two numbers and project what it would become over 10 years if invested at a conservative 6% annual return. Then compare that projected investment portfolio to your projected equity position at year 10 under realistic appreciation assumptions. If the equity position exceeds the investment portfolio by enough to justify the illiquidity and transaction cost risk, the purchase works. If it does not, renting and investing the difference is the stronger financial position. In Toronto in 2024, for a one-bedroom condo at current prices and rates, this test fails. The renter who invests the gap comes out ahead at year 10 by approximately $216,000. Now, for the person watching this who already owns a condo, what do? You do not panic. You do not sell immediately. Real estate transaction costs are too high to make reactive decisions. If you are significantly behind the investment scenario, you have information. You can build a plan. That might mean maximizing your TFSA with any surplus cash flow. It might mean making accelerated mortgage payments to reduce your interest exposure. It might mean selling in year 4 or 5 when your equity has grown enough to make the transaction costs less punishing. Information is the first step. Running the actual numbers is the first step. This video gives you the framework to do that without a real estate agent at the table who has a financial interest in one particular outcome.
3 things before this video ends. Action 1. Build your personal total cost comparison tonight. Take 15 minutes. Write down your current rent or your projected complete monthly ownership cost if you are considering buying. Mortgage, maintenance, property tax, insurance. Calculate the monthly gap. Go to a compound interest calculator. I will link one in the description. And project what that monthly gap becomes over 10 years at 6% annual return. That number is your opportunity cost. That is what you are deciding to forego when you choose ownership over renting and investing the difference. Action 2. Always run a status certificate review before you make an offer on a condo. A status certificate is a legal document that every Ontario condo corporation must provide upon request, at no cost to you before offer or within 10 days of request. It contains the reserve fund study, how much money is in the fund, whether it is adequately funded, and what major repairs are planned or anticipated. A real estate lawyer can review this document for $500 to $800. If the reserve fund is underfunded, which means below 70% of the recommended balance in the reserve fund study, you are looking at elevated special assessment risk in the near term. This single document review has the potential to save you $15,000 to $35,000. Action 3. If you are renting and investing the gap, maximize your TFSA first. Every dollar of the gap between your rent and equivalent ownership costs belongs in your TFSA before it goes anywhere else. Not in a high-interest savings account earning 4% and generating a tax slip. Not in an RRSP first, unless your marginal tax rate gives you a specific reason to prioritize it. In a TFSA, invested in a low-cost, broad market ETF, XEQT, VEQT, or a target date equivalent from a major provider. Your 2024 TFSA contribution room, if you have never contributed and were 18 or older in 2009, is $95,000. That room does not expire. Use it. Drop your city in the comments. Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, or Montreal, and tell me whether you are currently renting or you own a condo. I will tell you which numbers from this video apply directly to your situation. And if you have a friend who is about to buy a condo because someone told them renting is throwing money away, send them this video. Because the math in this video is the conversation they are not having with their real estate agent. The next video in this series breaks down exactly what a $70,000 salary actually leaves you with in each of Canada's 4 major cities, After tax, after housing, after every cost nobody mentions at the offer table, I will see you there. The math does not care what your parents believe. It only cares what you do with it.